I think what's really critical in terms of building teams to address this marketplace is to have some battle scars. I would spend probably about 2 to 3 weeks out of every quarter in Manila face to face with my team, teaching them the business. At the rate at which this, technology is evolving, understanding those basic skills are probably going to be invaluable so that you can, again, attach it back to what a client's trying to accomplish. Real estate is a very heavily relationship-oriented business. Your expertise and your ability to communicate and to plug in, again, solutions that meet their objectives. If AI gets to that point, then I'm going to be out of a job. But I think I'm fairly confident that that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Welcome to the 80/20 Recruit Podcast, the show that's all about mastering remote talent acquisition and retention. Whether you're hiring your first remote worker or scaling your team, we've got you covered. I'm Frank, your host. Let's get started. Welcome to the 80/20 Recruit Podcast, where we go hiring, building, and retaining top talent. This show is dedicated to helping business leaders, recruiters, and HR professionals master the art of hiring and managing real estate teams. I'm your host, Francisco Israel, and you can find me anywhere on LinkedIn. Your podcast is proudly sponsored by 8020recruit.com, where we help real estate companies like investors, flippers, wholesalers, recruit high-performing Latin American talent 100% guaranteed without any markup fees or any hidden fees. So today we have Tom Hall. He's our guest. He's the founder of and managing partner at Hall Capital Advisory. Today's guest is Tom Hall, a founder and managing partner at Hall Capital Advisory. And Tom is also investment associate at Lovejoy Commercial, where he has sourced, evaluated, and executed raw land multifamily retail asset acquisitions and dispositions for institutional grade developers and institutional investors nationally, representing over $1 billion in opportunity. Tom, welcome to the 80/20 Recruit Podcast. Tell us a little bit about what you think is changing regarding or maybe a big trend that you see regarding recruiting and hiring in our industry.
First of all, appreciate you having me on your podcast. Excited to be here. Right now, I formed Hall Capital Advisory a number of years ago, just to really focus not only on land development and working with developers, independent with a partnership that I have with Lovejoy as well. So I'm a one-man show now, but in the past I've had a number of opportunities to work and develop teams, both from a software standpoint in the real estate space, but also from a brokerage standpoint. So have my own brokerage, had a number of folks. Today I do not, because I enjoy the freedom of working for myself. I think the number of challenges we have right now, particularly, is depth of experience. I think we've gone through a very tough cycle of competitive, really challenging interest rates and slow growth in that regard, which has impacted rent growth. So when I did a fair amount of analysis on land, deals just didn't work out. So I think what's really critical in terms of building teams to address this marketplace is to have some battle scars. And what I mean is you need to have experience, have going through I think both the highs and primarily the lows to really understand that this is a truly cyclical business. You don't, I think we've had enormous amount of positive growth that came to what I believe is sort of a screeching halt. So if you haven't worked through that environment, a number of folks have kind of fallen out of this industry because they didn't realize how tough it can get. But this isn't new. This is a number of cycles, and I've been in this business over close to 30 years now. So I've gone through a number of these cycles. So experience working through that and the tenacity to understand value. And when I mean value, you really have to understand what are the needs of a client in terms of what their investment criteria is. Not all deals make sense. And I think I pride myself in, that I've gone through so many lean years because, quite frankly, deals didn't make sense. And it was tough to bring a deal, even though, they come across your desk. I want to make sure I'm meeting addressing the investment criteria effectively for the folks that I work with. And I think over the years, with the relationships I've been able to build, that's been of enormous value. So you really, I think, depending on the role, and this is, I'm really speaking probably more primarily towards brokerage. Um, that's important. You need folks who understand how to put a deal together, what a capital stack looks like, underwriting being a very, very important piece. So really understanding what are the components you need to put into some type of model in order to address what, that matches what your investment criteria would be. So I would say folks that have that level of experience, even if you just learn the tools, and then just bury yourself in what I did is I spent a number of years trying to just wasn't selling a lot. So what I did is I deconstructed deals and put them into my model and better understood how to come to how to make those deals make sense or why they didn't make sense. So I think you need to have some hands-on experience really looking at the analysis of a deal and then feeling confident that you can either speak to why it works or why it doesn't work, and then you build your reputation on that. So I think again, you've got to have some battle scars. You got to have a really good, firm understanding of analysis, really understanding what client criteria and what they're, really understanding what they're trying to achieve. Um, Tenaciousness. I mean, really, you've got to be able to live through these cycles and understand it. I have a tremendous amount of passion for this industry. So no matter what, I've always considered myself a frustrated architect. And so I love to look at deals. Love to look at land. I love to have, just do the analysis. So I think a natural curiosity and passion for the business is critical. Otherwise, you're not going to survive these ups and downs. So I think from that perspective, that's probably critical from a brokerage standpoint. I think you initially kicked this off, or I mentioned to you that I had the privilege of working for a software company that was in property management. We sold software and services to all across commercial real estate, from multifamily to commercial to single family, and I had the responsibility of managing the team that delivered software, property management software for the single family space. And so uh, we, the strategy overall for the organization was to build a team that was uh, outside the US in terms of cost. So I spent a fair amount of time building a large team in Manila, the first team that was effectively responsible for delivering solutions directly to clients. We did consulting. We had support group that supported the software. My team was responsible for really understanding the business and delivering that software that met the needs of the small business, primarily small to mid-size investors, a lot of mom and pops for single family. So when I think about my experience doing that, one, English language being a critical one in Manila, not a problem. But I think Americans, and this is just, it's not really it's just an experience. We've often gone through call centers, and my team was entirely phone based. We didn't have in-face consulting, but so so I left in
When was
2020.
this?
So this was probably 2014 to 2020. So about 7 years. So about 5 years ago is when I left the organization and then started my own business. But so it was in the height of, the literally the investment craze on acquiring, rental property, because rent growths were, everyone felt like there was no end in sight. And we learned very quickly that's not true. The software we sold was, again, primarily to small business, small investors, but then beginning the introduction of large institutional investors, and we started to meet the needs of both the small business but also institutional investors. Criteria being very, very different, more sophisticated underwriting. So this is, again, back to my point in brokerage, it's like the understanding how people look at these deals and how you make these numbers make sense based on your criteria, not everybody else's. You got to understand what your risk tolerant is, what your yield on costs makes sense, those things. That's important, individually or from an organization standpoint. And you need to understand how to do that, how to put those numbers together. So my team had the responsibility of dealing with the small mom and pops, but also the institutional. So bringing that team up to speed was critical. I would spend roughly probably about 2 to 3 weeks out of every quarter in Manila, face to face with my team, teaching them the business. So really walking them through what is property management. And I mean, fundamentally just breaking it down, understanding the language, what are the buzzwords, but
Wow.
not just saying the buzzwords, but what does it mean? What's the meaning behind it? So that they can be competent in speaking to people who really understand how to buy and sell real estate, how to manage real estate. So that was important. But it was also teaching them how to, in a very conversational, consultative way, how to obtain specific data requirements in order to configure the software so that they would be successful in getting it up and running for my clients. And so not only was it just property management, it was payments, it was screening, a lot of other products that were in kind of bundled together to help solve those problems. So it was important for me in terms of building a team to be incredibly hands-on. So particularly in light of being, thousands of miles away and, a half a day ahead of us, you needed to have face-to-face experience. I needed to understand how these people, how my team operated it. I needed to know them at a personal level so I can understand what their challenges were so that we could, as a team, really work well together to meet our objectives of getting software up and running and clients satisfied with using our solutions.
Hey there! A quick break to remind you that 80/20 Recruit podcast is brought to you by 80/20 Recruit, helping you hire pre-vetted, top-performing remote talent from Latin America. Save hours of recruiting and find the perfect fit for your team. Visit 8020recruit.com to learn more. So for what you're mentioning, I see that you recommend that you hire anyone hires people with important, extensive experience. I agree to a certain extent. As a recruiting company, most of I want to say 90% of the positions that we allocate are real estate experienced people, especially remote. But where I'm going is that lately, I see that a trend is a few clients have been asking us to hire, especially people in sales or in acquisitions, which is like a sales position, but because it requires sales negotiating skills, but it's actually acquisitions. So we see people wanting people with sales skills without real estate experience, like SDRs or business developer management people that come from whatever software or other services kind of businesses. But they want people that don't have, not all, but I want to say I've seen a small trend. 3 or 4 clients have been asking for people without real estate experience because they want new dogs that can learn new tricks. That's what they've said. It's a small trend, but what's your take on that?
And I think that kind of addresses exactly what I mean is understanding how do you understand a client's criteria. It's if you've got basic and a good solid knowledge of sales, you've gone through the process of how to evaluate that, how to bring a client through that conversation so that you can get down to the core understanding of what it is they're trying to accomplish. And then meeting what you're selling, whether it's a property, whether it's land, whether it's a service, all of that, you need to then draw those lines and connect it to these are my featured benefits, whatever, that will help you accomplish your X, Y, and Z in what it is your criteria is. So I think basic skills. I think too, the industry is evolving with technology, with AI, all of this. So, you know, as I said, battle scars. You need to understand how deals have flown in the past, but at the rate at which this, technology is evolving, understanding those basic skills are probably going to be invaluable so that you can again attach it back to what a client's trying to accomplish. Because if you don't understand it, or if you misunderstand it and you start presenting data or information or value, whatever it is you're trying to do, the value is a disconnect, you're not going to have the credibility to build that relationship long term. And I think that's critical. Is real estate is a very heavily relationship oriented business.
So regarding that, I see AI and technology, quote unquote, taking away lots of jobs. Maybe we see that, um, or not even taking away. I'm already biasing you my question, but I see AI with the potential to be cold calling, to be managing leads, to doing even some customer success, or to answer some phone calls. But relationships, I think we're not there for a while. So what do you think about that?
Well, I'll give you an example. I've spent a fair amount of time in Houston working with a number of developers looking for land opportunities. And what AI doesn't do is drive the streets to look at the neighborhood to understand what the dynamics are, what dynamics are changing within within an area, and why certain sites or existing sites might be up, or buildings might be a good opportunity for you know, rehab, for tearing down redevelopment. AI doesn't know that. Now they can do all the zoning, all of that. I've worked with a number of those tools, but what you need is experience. You need to understand, and again, go back to the very basics of real estate: location, location, location. And if you have familiarity with an area, how it's developing, does AI understand what the conversations are taking place with the city? Are they speaking to the city? Do you understand what those planners are looking for? All of that gets plugged into a much more complex problem. Now, there are things that you can take away, like you said. I think cold calling, vetting a list, evaluating who might be a good candidate. What's the probability of sales? There are a number of those tools, as well as you look at mortgage rate. I mean, age of mortgages, all of that. All of that's great data to set you up to have very effective value related conversations with your clients. That's probably most important. Your expertise and your ability to communicate and to plug in, again, solutions that meet their objectives. If AI gets to that point, then I'm going to be out of a job. But I think I'm fairly confident that that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree. Tom, we're getting to the end of this show, and I really want to ask you to tell us a little bit more about your business, about who you serve right now, because real estate can get really broad, and the different services and products that you can sell and serve. So, can you tell us a bit on what is the customers that you usually serve, and how can people connect to you anytime soon?
Sure. No, I appreciate that. I have a small network of folks that I work with here locally in Dallas. I live in the Dallas area, but I also have a group of folks that are nationwide that do private equity and invest primarily in real estate. So those relationships have allowed me to identify opportunities for medical development nationwide. I've got a relationship with a great organization out of Houston, a number of multifamily developers as well. So it's it's really helping them understand what's not open on the market. Obviously, your knowledge and experience, and and sharing opportunities that are off market, which is how you make money in commercial. Quite frankly, that's nothing new. But it's really those connections, those relationships, that allows me to work with them to help identify opportunities wherever they are, whether they're in the southeast, whether they're here in Texas, whether out on the West Coast, and those development or the relationships that I have with brokers nationwide as well. So that's helped. So it's a matter of really identifying, I would say, primarily multifamily. I'm doing a large commercial multi mixed use project here in Dallas, and connecting those pieces, multifamily pieces, retail pieces, maybe medical, some medical there as well. So it's working with those folks and helping them identify where there's opportunity and hopefully putting some deals together, which so far has been it's pretty good.
Any last message from you to the world from or to anyone just listening to you right now?
Just hang in there. Business, I think business is certainly improving. There's no question about that. But regardless of the market conditions, there is always opportunity. And it's now just, I think through your network, don't be afraid to continue to build your network and to just simply cold call people. And I did that a lot on LinkedIn, and that's how I developed. In fact, probably one of my most valuable relationships was simply a cold call on the East Coast, who I've done now a number of things with together. So it's always looking for the opportunity, and as I said, connecting those, the opportunity with what that meets somebody's criteria, and being confident that that's the right solution, and stick to it.
Thank you, Tom. I think that's a wrap. So really, thanks a lot to Tom. You can find more about Tom just searching for him in LinkedIn. He goes for Thomas J. Hall in LinkedIn. You can find him there. That's how I found him. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you can subscribe and leave a 5-star review. And if you're a real estate leader and you want to be featured, just apply to our guests to be a guest on our podcast at 8020recruit.com/podcast. And of course, consider 8020 Recruit as your go-to partner for all things recruiting in our industry. Until next time, keep building strong teams and hiring smarter. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the 8020 Recruit podcast. If you found today's episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. Want more tips? Follow us on LinkedIn and visit our website 8020recruit.com for exclusive resources. See you next time.